Hello and welcome to the Go2Him podcast. We're trying to promote men speaking to each other about their problems. In this episode, we speak to Steve Catt, who is the frontman of the band Last of the Misfit Heroes, about his recovery. Don't forget to like and subscribe in all your usual podcast places. Thanks and enjoy.
Today's episode, we talk about recovery with our guest, Steve Catt. Steve Catt is my cousin. He's a good friend as well. We're here today to discuss the crucial parts of mental health. So we're going to talk to Steve about his journey. We're going to talk to him about his experience of depression. And most importantly, we will focus on Steve's journey out of his most challenging times and into a state of recovery. So Steve, it's really good to have you here today. And thank you for coming all this way to discuss your journey.
Yeah, thanks for asking me.
So Steve, tell us a little bit about your experience and how you got into a state of depression through the depths and out again.
Yeah, sure. So really, with me, it wasn't just one thing. This had been a build-up over years of not looking after myself mentally, not really understanding what was going on. So if I take you to January 2019, I can even tell you the time, the date. 10th of January 2019, 20 past 7 in the morning. Just started a new job, just coming after Christmas. So I've been there less than a week. And at that time in the morning, I was in the shower getting ready for work. And I just said to my wife, I can't do this anymore. And that was it. From there, my whole life sort of changed, if you like. It was a build-up of years, months of stress, anxiety, depression, but not really understanding what it was. And it just got to that moment where I had to stop. Just sort of, something is seriously not right, Sorry, it's just even thinking about it now, it's like, it's just been 4 years, but it's still, when I take myself back to that place, it's a horrible place to be in. So basically the build up to that, I was in quite a stressful job a few years before. We had one of these companies at work where you can ring up, if you're struggling, it's all confidential, those sort of things. And so I took some advice from there. This was 2 years before. So they said, go and see your GP. Basically the GP, all they do, and it's, it's not criticism or anything, but they'll just put you on antidepressants, basically. Even though I understood I was struggling, I didn't really take it any further. I thought, all right, I'll take these pills, I'll be fine. And I sort of carried on. So I carried on doing the things which weren't good for me and not really understanding it, but just kept carrying on doing it. Basically, that job was very stressful, so I left it with no real plan for what I was going to do next. What I ended up doing was going to a temporary job and doing a similar sort of work, accounts work. But I didn't have any goals or I didn't have a plan. I was just, living day to day, if you like. And I think eventually it just sort of ground me down. And like I said, I started a new job. That was the sort of the final straw, really. It was like everything had built up. It's like something in my mind just sort of said, this has got to stop. You just can't do it. Yeah, so basically that day, it was a Thursday, I actually went to work and I was sitting in this new job with people I didn't know, in a job I didn't know. And I had nothing to relate to. I had nothing, I remember sitting at a desk. The world was going on around me. I was sort of zombied out. I was numb. I couldn't tell you anyone's name while I was sitting there. Couldn't tell you what happened that day. All I did, I rang the doctors at lunchtime and sort of said, can I get an appointment? And luckily I got an appointment that evening. Went and saw the doctor. She signed me off for 2 weeks with stress, anxiety, depression, all the symptoms and stuff. And that was it, really.
When you got to that point, Did you accept it? Or was there a build-up up to that point where you kind of knew that it was stress, depression, anxiety, but you just kind of wanted to not, because there is a stigma attached to these sort of things. And for me, I think the times when I've had depression and anxiety, I've ignored it, I've tucked it away, and it's because like I said in episode 1, you walk into work, you don't want to be that guy that is off with stress because you've always got that label. There is a worry about that.
Yeah, whilst society's moving in the right direction with mental health, men and women in general, I still feel that your card will still be marked, and it doesn't matter the goodwill of your boss and the company you're working for. I still genuinely believe that your card.
That's very true. Yeah,
and it's a shame, really. But on the upside, I do actually feel like society and as a country, I think we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and maybe your card isn't marked. Maybe that's just something
that's
we carry.
Absolutely true. And maybe that's generational.
Yeah,
maybe that's something because being somebody who started work in the 80s, maybe back then. Yeah. If you said like, oh well, sorry, I've been signed off work with, I doubt you'd even get signed off work for stress and anxiety.
Go home, have a bath, you'll be all right the next day.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, but to be honest, up until that point, I've heard of stress, heard of anxiety, depression, but I didn't relate it to what I was going through. So it was, I knew something wasn't right. I knew there was something going on, but I was just doing the normal thing that everyone does. I was getting up every day, going to work. I was
the daily grind.
Yeah.
There's someone worse off than me somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing, you sort of get programmed in, don't you? You do the normal thing every day, and it'll get you through, and you make your money, and you just tick along. See, this is another thing. There wasn't one thing that I could. It wasn't as if I was ill, like physically ill, or there wasn't something didn't happen to me or anyone I knew that could say, right at that point, this has triggered something, or this was just a build up of years of just not understanding what was going on.
And do you what was it you said you do accounts?
Yeah, accounts work. Yeah.
So would you say that in general, when you work, you look on working as a means to do other things? Would you say that was the case, or would you say that it's quite important, probably more important than you want to admit to yourself, like a career type thing or job stability and things like that?
It's more. It's always been a means to an end of just keep yourself going. I've never set out to do it. It's something I sort of fell into and just sort of worked my way through.
Yeah,
and, it's not.
That's quite interesting in a way. Like if you're in a position where you don't like your job, I've been in that position. Like I worked for myself and all sorts of things and hated it. People will say to you, "Well, maybe the way to think about it is, oh, well, this is enabling you to do this." And I find it quite interesting that you already had that. That sort of mindset.
Well, this is it. Yeah, I think. It's a difficult one because we'll talk about music later on, but I'm definitely part of my brain, part of my mind is creative, and it needs to be working. And I think probably what had happened up until that point, I hadn't been looking after that side. So I've been doing all the normal stuff, I was saying, just ticking along, but I wasn't listening to the other part of your mind, the creative mind that needs to be fed. And I ignored that for years. But I was playing in the band at the time, but it wasn't giving me what I needed. So it's interesting because I need to be writing, I need to be just getting thoughts out all the time. But I was playing in a band which wasn't doing what I needed it to do. So even though I was doing the right things, or I thought I was doing the right things, playing in bands and stuff, there was something missing. There was something not there. And it's interesting, like as I sort of went through the whole recovery stage, you start realising what makes you happy and what doesn't. And it's interesting, there's I saw a bit with Tyson Fury, and he was saying about in his early fights, even when he was winning, he was getting no enjoyment out of it. And that sort of built up for him. And you think you're doing the right things, but it may not be. It may be that you've just gone slightly off path, and it's having an effect and sort of a build up, but you're not aware of it.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! So what makes you special? There's nothing about you to come in. A shadow existence, the strength for resistance in the end. Something exploits you, it will cry through you. You can't hide from yourself. Your thoughts have abused you, your trust has misused you, and you're falling down again.
It's. I mean, this was 4 years ago when it all came to a head, but now I still get. I can feel it coming on stages of, I suppose, depression. But I've got ways of dealing with it. I can normally. There's normally signs when I'm not sleeping properly, or I've not been exercising, or I've had a few beers. You've had a big weekend or something. I can feel it. I feel myself going back into that stage. So it's a case of going through. I mean, we can talk about it in a bit, like different stages, different ideas that I've sort of learned. Going through recovery.
I think that's something that both you and I can relate to, Al, because I know quite often Alan will send me a text saying, "What a fucking shite day, I'm not going to drink anymore because it just makes me feel shit. And certainly from a lifestyle I've led of enjoying parties and raves and stuff like that, you have a big one here Monday, Tuesday, you're like, oh my God, like, why do I do this to myself? You get to Thursday, Friday again, be like, give me a Jack Daniels.
Give me that rum.
And you just end up in this routine cycle where you start the week and like today is Monday, and I certainly felt like it today because I had such a great weekend. I liken it to with maybe if you start a 10k race and you get to 9.5 kilometres and you're told, oh, you've got to start again. That's how Monday feels. Like you get to it again, like, oh, it's another Monday. You're in this daily grind. More often than not, it's unfortunate. I enjoy my job, but I've been in a job that I haven't enjoyed, and I think, what am I doing? And every Monday just builds up, and each Monday gets worse. And you do get to a point, and I think when you're not happy in something that you're doing for 8 to 10 hours a day, it can massively impact your personal life, and you just think everything grinds you down. Every aspect of your life grinds you down. Certainly my experience of being there and coming out the other side and into right now and an incredibly happy mindset, all of the things that I thought were grinding me down and wore me out, I'm still doing, but they don't wear me out, and it's a mental state of mind. You mentioned you got signed off from work for 2 weeks. What happened after that?
So it was basically 2 weeks, and then it went to another 2 weeks. I mean, this is the thing. That first month, January, and going into February, I couldn't do anything. You hear about people who just can't get out of bed, and I was in that state. I just couldn't. There was just nothing there. There was no emotion or anything. It's a funny one, mixing anxiety with depression. It's a nightmare. It's like on one side, on the depression side, you don't want to do anything. You can't motivate yourself. On the anxiety side, you're scared. You want to get out of what you're feeling. And it's like this constant battle going on. I mean, to be honest, all I could do for those couple of months was take my daughter to school first thing in the morning. So that was a reason to get up. And I have my dog, Barney. He got a walk every morning. And that is it. I couldn't do anything else. And then, basically, so what happened was when I sort of went to the doctors, signed up, it opened up a whole load of other stuff. And it's like someone just released the dam.
It's a dam,
And was that when you saw a professional?
Well, I was lucky in a way. Basically, I took everything that was being offered to me. At the time, there was CBT, like the over the phone. I had to wait about 6 weeks for that. So I got involved with another group sessions. And so basically I just tried to accept everything I could get. And it's strange because the group one, I really struggled with that because everyone's so different, but you're in a room with people with, I mean, some people had serious issues, they just couldn't, they left the house once a week and that was for this group. So on one side, I'm sort of thinking to myself, am I really, because what I didn't understand what was going on. I'd sort of lost, I'm not saying too dramatic, I'd lost who I was. Well, I didn't know who I was. So it's not like, like I said, when I was sitting in that office, I didn't know who I was. I didn't have anything to sort of gauge myself. I couldn't go back over old experiences and use them. It was like, I just froze and just become numb, sort of thing. So in the group sort of setting, it was strange because some people were really quite ill, and other people. So I was thinking, am I as bad as I think I am?
Almost imposter syndrome.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's hard. You can't, because that's the thing. We can have a conversation now, and three of us will probably take something different out of it and look at things differently.
Misfit come alive. By the time I come to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
the film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He's in a what would be the right thing to call it? An institution, and he's telling people he's not mad, and I suppose you must have felt elements of that because people were worse off than you, or you thought they were worse off.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Did you start telling yourself you were overreacting?
That first month when basically all I was doing is getting up, taking the dog to school, taking the dog out. The rest of the day, I would sit on the sofa with the TV on, and it'd be like World War III going off in my head. Well, you feel every emotion. It's such a strange emotion because I was blaming myself. How did I let this happen? In one hand, and then there's other emotions like, am I actually ever going to work again? If I open something really serious here, and am I ever going to come back from it? And there's everything going on, and you just don't know. Yeah, you just don't know where to go, and it's.
And I guess because you just started a new job as well, that is well stressful. If you're off, doesn't matter what you're off with. That's going to properly stress you out because you think, I've sat that interview, gone through the stress of that interview. I knew I needed to get a new job. This job was right for me, and now I'm off for weeks. That's just going to add.
And it's interesting what you say, World War III going off in your head, and something that I realise now that I didn't realise at times where I've been very anxious, borderline depressed, the inner monologue that you permanently have with yourself over and over again, to a point where my sleep was so disturbed from that because it never shut off. And I would talk, I'd babble in my sleep, I'd tell people they're fucking wankers in my sleep, and I I used to text you stuff
some of those stories.
It was just... I'd just be having to go at someone and shouting, "You stupid slag," in my sleep and stuff like that.
I think looking back, the way I was talking to myself was terrible. No, I wouldn't. I was just beating myself up about everything. I mean, everyone. The one thing that really I can remember stuck with me every time I sort of left the car. I'd see if I'd unlocked it. 2 seconds later, I could remember if I'd locked it. But I checked it. But the thing was, it wasn't so much... That wasn't really the thing, if I'd locked it or not locked it. It was the way I beat myself up about the fact that I had to check.
Yeah, because I do struggle with OCD.
Right.
And it's this... without going too far into it, because we've only got a finite amount of time, but if I go to leave the house to go to work, I'm checking taps, I'm checking plugs are off. And then I get to the point, if I take too long, I literally say out loud, for fuck's sake, this is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. That's probably more of an indication of your own DIY skills out.
Well, yeah. And I don't trust anything to work properly, ever. That actually just adds to it, because then what you're doing is it's prophecy?
Self-sabotage.
Yeah, it is self-sabotage, because at some point you're going to start believing that you're this idiot, that you're telling yourself you are. Yeah. And then it's just actually compounding everything.
No, that's very true.
And I used to do that. I'd say, right, I'm going to the shops.
Yeah.
Do you need me to pick up anything?
Yeah.
Then I'd be given a list of 3 items.
Yeah.
And I'd say, can you text that to me? Because I will forget it. Yeah. And now I don't. I have a mental shopping list in my head, and I manage to be okay. It's because you've got all this other stuff going on in your head. Yeah. A shopping list never resonates as part of that thought process. It's just a shopping list. Unless it's there in front of you, it doesn't.
And also,
ever
you've
register.
only got yourself to disappoint.
Yeah,
that's true.
Haven't you?
Yeah.
Because like before, when you were cohabiting, you were probably worried that you were going to let that other person down. Whereas now, if you forget something off your shopping list, then you've only got, it's only that. Yeah,
and you do daft things. And one thing that I used to do a lot was, oh, did you get this? Oh, no, they didn't have any. They were out. I just forgot it.
Yeah. But funny enough now...
And then you feel bad.
Yeah,
because just told a little white lie.
Because you lied, but then you also haven't got the stuff.
What, they were out of butter completely? Completely.
Yeah.
Must have missed the delivery.
There's a massive butter shortage. People were going out with it under their arms.
Bloody panic buyers.
But now, what I notice, if I leave the house empty of a weekend, I don't have any OCD at all. Right. So for all I know, I'm going out. I'll go out with a dog. Go for an hour walk with her, and I haven't even considered whether there's a tap on or whether there's a plug on or whether the back door's even locked, because I'll know that it's locked and I won't be asked about anything else.
Yeah. I only get it with the front door. I quite often sit somewhere where I've just arrived, be like, did I shut the front door? Of course I did. Every single time. I've never left the front door open. I've never left it unlocked. No. But you still doubt yourself.
Still, And
self-sabotage.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I think the way I was sort of dealing with all that sort of stuff, it was the way I was reacting to it myself, and like I was saying, just really beating myself up about it. Yeah, and then that just adds to the anxiety and everything else.
You find reason to give yourself a hard time.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. It was a horrible place to be in. You slowly have to start unpicking all the unpicking it all. So sort of going back to the sort of recovery side of it. Then so I had CBT over the phone. I had the group therapy. I also had another therapy. I had an insurance policy which actually paid out for depression. That was another story. That was when I first rang them up and sort of said, I've been signed off of work, I've got this policy and everything else. And the guy on the other end of the phone actually made light of it. So I said, I've been signed off with stress, anxiety, depression. He said, I must stress to you, if this is work related, we won't pay out. No, this is
what? Yeah, this is. He actually meant that as a joke.
He was. Yeah, he thought it was funny. Yeah,
but
this is. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. This was like probably 2-3 months in, so I've already started getting my head into the idea of getting better. They ended up giving me like £200 in compensation. But you think if I was lucky when I rang, but if that happened right at the beginning and I was desperate, I had no money coming in, I needed that money, and someone's making jokes at the end of a line.
That could have tipped you over the edge.
It is a tip over the edge, though, isn't it? Not the calls or anything like that, but
that's that little 1% that could fuck you right up.
And that's the thing, because we take insurance out because you want to be covered. You want, I suppose, the knowing that if something does happen, you're going to be all right. You're going to get the money in or whatever.
And that's exactly why we do this, right? It's that someone's made a joke out of someone's mental health because it hasn't historically been taken serious enough. And that's an exact example, because if you had a disease like like cancer or something like that, and you rang up and said that, would that person make a joke of it? Absolutely not. You think of the amount of people that die because of their mental health state, one way or another, not looking after themselves, suicide.
Well, it's tantamount to like you being in a car accident, right? Like having ended up with like losing a leg or a foot or something, and then him calling you Hopalong.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just like
that's true.
Yeah, how are we going to help you out then, Hopalong? Oh, you're crazy. Oh, bloody hell. Oh. Yeah, let me pay you more.
Yeah.
What's your name? Peg Leg Pete?
Yeah, Peg Leg Pete. Oh, dear. Hop on over here. We'll sort you out.
Yeah. That was an interesting experience because they, what they had, so that, again, going back to recovery, they put me in touch with like another therapist. So it's like face to face. And what I found from that, it was good. But what the company did through the whole process, so obviously they're looking at it from a money, they're paying me out now monthly, like to cover the depression and everything. What they did, they spoke to my therapist, and the therapist sort of went through a list. And one of the things the therapist said was that he wasn't sure the therapy was going to work because, I wasn't in, I was lethargic, I wasn't interested, I didn't seem interested in the therapy and everything else. One of the main things of depression is you do lose interest. But for the company to use that then against me, sort of questioning why I need
bonkers.
It. It's and sort of the end of this story with the insurance company. But basically, I made a complaint about the whole way I was treated, and because at the time part of my therapy was to make notes of how I was feeling all the way through my days and everything else. I was actually making quite good notes about how I was treated and how these people were making me feel. So by the end of it, I got they gave me £200 and said we're going to use this to help in the future with cases. So. So that was a positive, I suppose. But one of the things, like I was saying about recovery, I basically, through the CBT, actually, they told me to keep a diary of how I was feeling. I was basically living hour to hour. Before we did this podcast, I went over the weekend and went through my notes, and I was literally living hour to hour. I couldn't go any further than that. Just I couldn't manage anything past that. I couldn't.
But was that helpful? Because you took away the grand scale of life. Yeah, and you broke it down. I know when in my job, when I work a strategy, if I look at it as a whole, I go, that's a really ambitious place to get to, and then you just break it down. So you're taking piece by piece, and you deal with each piece at a time. So would you say that helped you?
It did eventually, yeah. To start with, it felt like I was adding to what was going on in my head already. That it was like something else, another layer of, I need to start thinking about writing stuff down, which I didn't have to do. You know, it felt like it felt more pressure building up by doing it. But then eventually it does start to sort of make sense. And I went from doing it an hour, then I'd start doing like a morning and an afternoon, and just general feelings and things I've been through.
Do you think that maybe might have built in a tiny bit of routine into your day that would have helped you?
Yeah, possibly. I think, it's just,
just that little like small modicum of routine that you're going to write this little few words every once an hour, and then build it to like once a morning and once in the afternoon or the evening or whatever. And
I remember at the time, so Steve and I texted each other a lot when you were going through this, and I remember one time you texted me, and I think you mentioned something along the lines of having little things like, I'm going to get up and open the curtains. Yeah, was a great start. When you had that as part of your daily routine, that was a little step out, have a purpose.
Exactly. Yeah, just the smallest things can make a massive difference, and you don't realise it at the time. But even now, just the fact that I've got up and I've got out of bed, I've got myself washed or whatever. Instead of before thinking, that's what you do normally. That's your everyday. You should be doing that. Whatever. I'm now thinking, all right, I'm feeling crap. I'm not feeling great, but I've done this. And
setting goals.
Yeah, but it's just appreciating the little things.
Yeah, little wins, isn't it?
Exactly,
it's like little battles in that war. Yeah, winning those little battles. It's everything.
Totally. Yeah, I mean that's like when we come on to the band stuff. I'll go into a bit more, but I did an interview and someone asked me like what success looks like for the band. To be honest, the success is us just doing the band. That's we've already hit success. Anything else that comes after that is a bonus. That way, the way I look at the band now, if we never do a gig again, it won't bother me as much because I know we've done so much. Even just by putting that little band together from where I started from. So, but anything that comes on top, you then appreciate it a lot more because it just adds to it.
Going back to the diary you were keeping, I know at the time you also kept a video diary. I think, and this was what I mentioned to you the other day. There's a couple of minutes of you just talking about how you were feeling, and you sent it to me. And I'm not sure I ever told you what I was doing when I listened to that. I had my earphones on and I was queuing up to get on an aeroplane. I was travelling through work. And I watched it in the queue as we were getting on the aeroplane. Probably should have picked my moment a little bit better. Watching you suffer, I cried in the queue. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got to get on this plane. I've got to go to a meeting. I've just seen that my cousin, who I love, he's got it out there. But I also had this sense of, I was really proud that you were able to get that, and I know that you would have looked back at that. Have you, in your preparation for this, have you gone back and watched any of those?
Yeah. Again, going back to the recovery, I gave myself some goals. I mean, at the time, they just seemed like miles off. But one of the goals was to do a documentary about the band, how it started, and where we sort of ended up with the album. Yeah. So I've got tons of footage. I need to put it together. It's one of those things I'll keep saying I'm going to do it. I've never found the right time to sort of say, right, that was the beginning and this is where we are now. So it keeps changing. So that is one thing I want to do. But those sort of videos, they really did help. It's funny watching them back now because it doesn't feel like, this is 4 years ago. Me talking about this now is totally different. The person I was before this happened, I didn't talk to anyone. Even when I spoke to my brother at the time, he said no one would have known because I never talk about it. I never open up. I've never opened up, even like in relationships. So for my first marriage, through other girlfriends, even with mates. I've never sort of once went to someone and said, I'm not feeling good. I've never done it. I just couldn't do it. I suppose you never learn how to do it. You never, no one tells you, how to talk. I think now, like we're saying, things are changing and people. I mean, my daughter at school, they talk about it. How are you feeling, and they sort of put colours to it and things like that. Yeah. But it's getting them thinking about it. When I was at school, no one.
It should be part of the curriculum in both primary and secondary school, in my opinion.
Oh, totally.
And that's our mission, isn't it? Make having these conversations normal.
Yeah.
People have likened our previous shows to listening to blokes just sitting in the pub
having a chat,
and that's how it should be. And you'll all know from the first episode we did, I had a friend who took his own life, and since then, my group of friends that all knew him, if anyone's having a rough time, we talk about it, and we have done, and that's a good thing. And during your journey, Steve, at what point did you come to the decision, like you accepted that it's okay to talk about this.
Yeah.
You can be open with
Yeah.
it. And look, this stuff scares whoever you're talking to about anyway. But, as human beings, we've got to make sure that we listen to someone when they're opening up and don't immediately give advice. And
Just be an ear.
Yeah.
Just be an ear and just be there. I the amount of times when I've, like, even just talking to my missus, she's one of the most stoic people you could ever meet in your whole life, isn't she?
Yes.
And she's strong. She's like, obviously she opens up to me, but there's been times in our, like, when on my journey going through all this, that all I've wanted her to do is just give me a hug and tell me everything's all right, even though she doesn't know everything's going to be all right. But that stops her from doing it because she just wants to be honest.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know enough. So she won't tell me that, even though, because she just wants to do the right thing. Yeah. And that's similar with all this, in that, someone comes to you and they're having trouble, and they're, whether they're like not even a close friend, they're just like an acquaintance. Yeah. You've asked them in passing how they're getting on, and you don't know that they're going through a tough time, and they'll say, well, I'm suffering with anxiety, or I had a panic attack the weekend for the first time. The case is just to be there and just say, Jesus, just to be there and just not judge and not promise anything, even just say that's really awful, and
do you want to talk about it?
Do you want to talk about it? Here's my number if you ever want to talk about it, just so they know they've got an outlet if they need it.
Exactly.
Would you be willing to seek help? I can help you with that.
We can work on this together if you want.
The same as if someone said, look, I've got this massive lump sticking out my neck. You're like, well, have you seen a doctor?
Yeah.
What did they say? You really should go and see a doctor.
Yeah.
Don't ignore it.
Yeah.
It's the natural thing you say when someone's got a clear problem something physically.
Physical, something, with volume, physical volume.
Yeah. But when someone does the same with mental health, a lot of times it's oh, okay, all right, well, good luck with that.
Yeah, because people oftentimes...
It's scary.
But oftentimes people don't want to give the right words because they're not dealing with theirs.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what to say to themselves adequately, and so they're putting it under the carpet, and their wobble is probably a few months down the line or a couple of years or whatever. Yeah. But because they're hiding it like we all have, they don't want to take on yours as well.
It's difficult, isn't it? It's like now I totally understand what I went through. I understand it now, and I understand how it happened and why it happened. But at the time, it was hard because if we were having this conversation 4 years ago, I wouldn't know where to start. I wouldn't associate having what stress. I wouldn't associate of how I was feeling. It's weird. So and everyone's at a different point at a different time. Yeah. I mean, today I feel great, but over Christmas I had a couple of days where this would be the last thing I want to do is actually talk to anyone.
Correct.
So
I understand that.
Yeah, it's trying to balance it. It's trying to. At the moment, the three of us we know what we're doing. We're all chatting. It's great. We're on the level. We know what's happening, but that can change tomorrow. That could. It's so hard to.
Yeah,
to do it.
I remember conversations you and I had, Steve, and I think I texted you. It was probably always a Monday or a Tuesday. I think the text just probably went along the lines of, I fucking hate the school run, right? Because there were people in the playground, and I had no interest in making any eye contact with any of them. No. Now I love the school run. Have a chat with someone. See your kids' mates. Oh, you're right. I like it, and it's there's nothing wrong with the school run. That was part of your routine that helped you. But for me, sometimes getting up and doing the school run was the last thing I wanted to do because there were people there. Yeah. It's exactly what you say. Sometimes you just don't want to face.
Yeah. People just talk to you, and you've got nothing.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, you've got nothing there. You've got nothing to say.
Well, this is
you can't hide it. You can't like sugarcoat things anymore.
Yeah. Mm. Well, that when it first happened, in January 2019, when I was doing the school run, I couldn't look anyone in the face. I just couldn't. There was no conversation. There was nothing. It was literally a shell. I was going through that routine of there's just nothing there. It's a horrible place to be, because what happened was I went even darker, I suppose. Without going into too much detail, but it went really, really dark. You just couldn't talk to anyone, and you couldn't see a way out of it. You sort of hit bottom.
It's a difficult state of mind, and I've been there, and not shared it with too many people. But there was a period in 2020, lockdown. Work was stressful, barely sleeping. I was drinking a lot of weekends. Whereas I wasn't suicidal, I did go out for a walk one day, and I just watched the traffic. And at that point, for me, I understood self-harm, right? And it's not something I ever understood before. But kind of being in that frame of mind, like, okay, I'm not going to do anything stupid.
Yeah.
But I understand why
yeah.
people do it. I understand why people want to hurt themselves. I couldn't explain it. It's a feeling that I suddenly was very aware of and kind of aware of that with myself as well. I got back to my desk and I rang my counsellor friend after that. I was like, mate, I just need a bit of help here because I'm starting to worry about my own state of mind and you know, it's dark.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
dark and it's a horrible feeling to have a dark feeling.
Especially when you can't see your way out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can see how things really escalate. In my case, it escalated so quickly. I think that's probably why I've managed to sort of bounce up. When I did start recovering, it happened quite quick, and then I started getting myself involved in working with charities through the band and things like that.
Yeah.
I wanted to get more involved. I actually did a counselling course as well, which is the only exam I've ever passed. When I started doing the course, I passed the first level sort of thing, but it was quite obvious that there's no way I could be a counsellor. There were so many triggers going on.
Well, they do say, don't they, that because when I've had counselling in the past, I don't know how it came. I can't remember how it came up now, but I remember one of them said to me, "Yeah, you can't become a counsellor if you're of this kind of, for want of a better way of putting it, mindset."
Right. Yeah.
Because she said the problem is that you take on other people's problems and then you can't distance yourself enough in order to be able to do like the job, if you like, correctly.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not really sure whether I completely agree with it because I sort of feel like if you've had depression and anxiety, it's going to make you more
I think
empathetic.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I think for a lot of sort of counsellors on this course anyway, they had experienced it. They could then use other people's as a strength for themselves. They were using helping people that was helping their own sort of situations. But I think from my way of looking at it, I'm really happy to talk about general sort of mental health and everything else because with the music and everything else, it all sort of ties in. But to actually be responsible for someone else's mental health in a counselling. For me, it wouldn't have worked.
I sort of because I think like having gone through what you've gone through and gone through times where it's got dark and you get that feeling that it could have got darker. You just don't know, do you? You're in that sort of like that void where you don't know if you're going to get worse or better, and that's one of the scary things about it because it's almost like you become a passenger. You could become a passenger in your own head because you don't know where you're going to be. So you're on this sort of like you're on this roller coaster and you don't know, and so having to help other people with theirs. I don't think I could do it. I'd sort of feel like I'd have to be some kind of actual psychologist as opposed to a counsellor to know what could happen. I agree with you. I think it'd be too much responsibility.
Yeah.
And that would in itself become stressful, wouldn't it?
Oh, totally. So, how do you how do you sort of separate yourself? You can sort of see it all becoming one big, separating your own feelings from, their feelings, your feelings. And it was interesting doing the course and I'm glad I did it for me.
Well, it probably all added.
Yeah, it definitely helped. I mean, I met quite a few people. I'm still in contact with a few people from the course. One guy, he's a DJ and he plays our stuff quite a bit, so that's good. But it was good to do it. And again, it was another one of these sort of goals I sort of say I wanted to do. I didn't want to go through all of this and then come out at the end and not have anything to sort of not show for it. That's probably the wrong sort of way of putting it. But I didn't want to experience all that, hit that bottom, and then just what was all that about, sort of thing. And I wanted to make sure that this isn't going to happen again, sort of thing. And the more, like, even doing these sort of things, doing stuff with a band, it's me sort of doing things to make sure I don't go back to where I was. That's more scary than doing this. I could sit and talk about mental health all day. That's less scary than where I was when I was sat on the sofa, not knowing what day of the week it was or what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes. That was scary.
That's good perspective, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you often reflect back on that? Does it upset you? It's definitely something that I've done, that time standing at the road and having a big realisation that I'm not well. I look back on that and it does upset me. I just think, God, I really wasn't well. How did I get there? Yeah. I know how I got there. Generally not looking after oneself and a lot of stuff at the time going off in my personal life, plus the added weirdness of COVID, lockdown, standing 2 meters away from people in queues outside Tesco. Some people dealt with that. I didn't deal with that.
The thing with COVID for me, personally, when it all kicked off in 2019, I'd already had a year of just craziness. So COVID was actually quite a nice break for me. It's like you could say stay at home on furlough. I needed a year off after the year I'd had. So for me, it was wasn't great, but it was easier to sort of deal with, like, the lockdown. I was quite happy to sort of stay in all the time and just sort of just try and just take a break from everything. Which I mean, that's one thing that I've sort of realised is sort of time. We never you never get the time just to stop and just reset or just.
It's so important,
Yeah,
so important.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it took me from when it started in January, because obviously the job that new job, they kept, fair play to them, they kept me on statutory sick for about 7 months, I think. So
Bloody hell.
yeah, so they were great, they were really good. And then there's no way I was going to go back because I just couldn't.
Yeah, because it gets weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know how.
Like in the nicest possible way. I don't mean it horrible, but like.
No.
But they didn't know you.
No,
Right?
Yeah.
You were a stranger. You're
Yeah.
just this guy that came and went and has been on sick pay for like 7 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even knowing what you know now, like it wouldn't be a comfortable thing to do.
No,
It takes a lot of guts to walk back in there and just go, I'm back,
Yeah.
everyone.
I'm okay.
I'm okay now.
Stop worrying.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Yeah. It's Steve. You know Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go back after 4 years and go
Yeah.
back in there and sort of say,
Ringing IT up, going, I've forgotten my login details.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, well, you never bloody had them
Yeah,
in the
never
first
used
place.
them in the first place. They're exactly what they were before. Yeah.
that would be a nightmare. But
I'm interested to know how your missus coped with all this.
yeah, she
Was she scared? Was she?
not really. She's quite a strong character as well, and she, in a good way, she didn't really react in a oversensitive way, or she just
Stayed
stayed
on a
on the
level.
level. Yeah, and I think that sort of got us through it. I mean, to be fair to her, I don't know how she did it because at that time, her dad, he passed away now, but he had cancer, so he was really ill. She just started a new job as well, which she hated. And then she's got me ringing her up Thursday or the next morning saying I've been signed off. But yeah, she got through it. I mean, I was pretty much useless for months. So she was basically doing everything, looking after, making sure things were getting done. And without her, it would have. Yeah.
Thank God for strong women, eh?
Yeah, I don't know how she did it.
You never know. You're going to trigger something off in somebody that you think that you've never seen in them before could potentially happen.
Yeah, it's hard because you don't know how deep you go with conversations and things like that. You like you say, you don't know. It's a strange one because you don't know how someone's coping with a situation until we just don't know how people are coping. Like saying her dad was really ill, so there was all that going on as well. So she was sort of juggling a lot of things at the same time.
Yeah.
But managed to get.
She sounds
going.
brilliant.
Yeah, she actually is.
From my experience, you can find yourself, if you're going to tell your wife, best friend, or anyone that's like very, very close to you, parents, whatever, when you say it, there's no going back as well, right? So it can be a scary thing to fully open up to someone you're that close to.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of people who are married or they live with someone that suffers. You hear it, don't you? They quite often say, I don't know what's wrong with them. I can't get them to open up. My experience, it's a fear of once it's out there, that person cares for you so much that they're going to put you on a path that you probably should go on.
Yeah.
But it's scary.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to make you do the things that you know you should do.
Yeah.
And if left to your own devices, you probably wouldn't do it.
My wife at the time, she said, look, I think you need professional help. This is way beyond me. And until I made that decision myself, I didn't want to go on antidepressants, right? And I knew that's the first thing that someone would say. So I wanted to avoid going to the doctor. So, I rung a guy that I know who's a counsellor. He specialises in addiction. I was drinking a lot through lockdown and whatnot. We all did, I think. And the first thing he said to me was, have you considered a route of antidepressants? Well, I don't want to do that. And he said, why? I said, well, because I don't just want to pop a pill and everything be okay. He goes, try it. It might just give you a platform to then build upon. Now, I used them, I think, for a couple of months, and I felt they weren't for me. And the reason being is mine and Steve's uncle's funeral. We went to the funeral, and I felt nothing that day. I just felt flat. And I've never felt like that at a funeral. Funerals I've been to where I don't even know the person particularly well. Like old lady down the road, and you just go and pay your respects. I've felt upset for the people around me that clearly loved them. But at the funeral, it's Charlotte's dad. I'm very close to Charlotte, and I saw how upset she was, and I just had nothing. I couldn't feel upset. That didn't work for me, and I know antidepressants work for a lot of people, and I'm glad that I gave it a go. But during that time, I did feel better. It felt like instead of having this big scribble of lots of different colours going on in my head all the time, I still had all the colours, but they were in like straighter lines, and I could think of them individually without trying to think of everything as one big mess.
Involved,
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've actually come off them now. I came off them, but when I was taking them, it's very mild dosage. It's like 20 milligrams of paroxetine or whatever. And I think looking at it, it's tiny, really.
Yeah.
But so I think it's more sort of a placebo type effect, because I took them first slot in 2017. I came off them, went back on them. And it's right. It just sort of took the edge off. Like you say, it made calmed everything down a bit. So but on the other hand, I did feel numb. I did feel, I didn't have the same sort of emotion, but not an emotional person. But I don't sort of show emotion. I don't. Well, this is probably part of all my problems. Really, the build up is I've got no release of. If I'm angry, I don't shout. I don't get into fights with people. I'm very calm.
Yeah.
On the surface, underneath, this. Like the old swan thing, isn't it? They go like clappers underneath up here, but I had no way of expressing it or no way of showing it. So the pills sort of worked for me for a while. But I think I said to you when I came off them, I went shopping about a week after coming off them, and my head was like, I think I said to you, it's like a Tarantino film. In my head, I was punching everyone. It was just carnage going on, and I'm trying to keep everything sort of doing my shopping and just keep it.
So when you came off them, did you come off them gradually?
Yeah, I
did.
did.
You have to, don't you?
Yeah.
What did you say it was paroxetine?
Paroxetine, yeah.
Yeah. So what ones were you on?
I can't remember. Little round things.
I'm on citalopram.
They're the ones.
Okay.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Sorry, we've had this conversation.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm on 20 milligrams, and I've been on them for
right.
I reckon this is year 10. I think it's the 10.
Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm on 20 milligrams at the moment. I was on 10. And basically, I didn't know. I was under the impression that they were just anti-anxiety. This is what I was told in the beginning. So they were stopped. Because the reason why I went on them in the beginning, because I had this absolutely gigantic panic attack, and it came out of nowhere. It was so bad, all I wanted to do was either faint or run. I've never felt like it since. So I was on, and it was since my dad died, I went on higher dosage. But I don't want to be on them forever. I really don't.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't agree with them, because I do, because I think they're allowing me to function better. But at the moment, I think I am. My brain still maintains this fear of having a panic attack again.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying.
It's not just antidepressants. Like personally, I take medication every morning and every night since having my stroke. Out of the whole of the business around the stroke, that was the most difficult thing for me. I accepted that the stroke happened. They showed me the medical notes and how they come to that decision and the scans and stuff. I could accept that, but accepting it, what felt like a life sentence of taking medication every single day, that took a while for me to really, really accept. And I suppose I don't want to be on these for a long period of time.
It was a funny one really, because it was after we did the Misfit Ball in November, and then I sort of slowly came off. Sort of took the dosage down, and I was running out anyway, so I haven't really sort of taken any medical advice about it. I sort of looked up at what you look online, and I sort of said to myself, I am strong enough to do it, and if I do start having going backwards, I've got no problem going back on them. But as it sort of turned out, it's sort of been okay. I suppose all of it really is just trying to find that balance of coping and just
doing things at the right time as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And you own that choice.
Yeah, it's hard, but because a lot of it is how it's down to you, isn't it? How you're going to do it, and how much.
But the fact that you came to that conclusion that you didn't want to be on them anymore, and you felt confident that you didn't need to do it, and actually you also had that little bit of background sort of experience that if it started to get like bad again, you would know what was happening, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Which is what you wouldn't have.
The triggers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And seeing those little
Yeah.
things happening in your mind and your mindset. You know, you wouldn't, like years ago before this, you would have probably not given that much credence, would you?
No, definitely. Yeah, you start becoming aware of how you're feeling, and like we were saying earlier, now if I'm feeling down, I can normally put it down to something.
Yeah.
That's, maybe I haven't, like we were saying about sleeping or having too much to drink, and you can put it down to, and it starts making sense, and you can sort of appreciate what does trigger things and what doesn't, and just making sure that there's nothing there that sort of hits you quick, and sort of knocks you out. But I think, like we're saying, it's just a massive build-up. It's interesting now because I've had about 5 jobs since lockdown.
Right. Yeah.
It's probably my 3rd or 4th. And it's interesting, but now I've got no problem going into any job and just sort of starting again. But again, that's because I know what triggers me. I know why I'm going to work. I've sort of told myself, I'm doing this job to pay, for the family, and it pays for me to do music. So I'm happy with that, and I can deal with that. And now I've got to a point where I leave work and I forget about it.
That's brilliant.
At 5 o'clock or whatever, 5:30, whatever, it's finished. I
Yeah.
won't even think about it now till tomorrow morning.
No.
Weekends, I don't think about it at all. But whereas if we go back before it all started, I couldn't switch off from work at all. So I was working long hours. Not really working in the evenings, but I wasn't stopping thinking. I kept thinking about it.
Round and round in your head.
And then weekends, and I remember going on holidays where I would be checking my phone.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's just
Oh, dear.
it's so now. Obviously, I'll never get into a job. I just wouldn't do it. Even if you could offer me all the money in the world, I wouldn't do it because it's going to affect my happiness.
I've been there, and you wake up at 2 in the morning, and you think, I didn't send that email, and that's it. You're not going back to sleep again. I've opened my laptop at silly o'clock,
Right.
and then I go and have a look. Oh, I did send it. And get back in bed because that one thought just grows and grows and grows. And the same, I'd be on holiday, I'd be checking my emails, and I'd be talking about work, talking about work. I'd see my dad, I'd tell him all about work. I never tell my dad about work anymore because, like you, I don't think about work outside of work time. Work was my shield. It's my shield, right? If I'm always working, I don't have to step back and
Don't have to deal with all the other stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the one thing I've learned through all of this, sort of from the deep, meaningful bit, your happiness is the most important thing, above anything else, above other relationships, above work, above anything. If you're not happy, then how can you make anything else happen? How can you be happy in anything else? Once you strip back all the negativity and stuff, that's basically the bottom line. Is you've got to make yourself happy.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, like now, this sort of stuff makes me happy. I'm getting, I know this. If I have any wobbles or anything, I'll listen back to this, or I'll put the album on and tell myself, even through all that shit. At the end of it, I did an album.
Yeah.
I've never done that. It's interesting actually. I saw an interview with Craig David, and he hit rock bottom.
Yes.
And he was saying that you have to, even for all that negative and everything else, you will find bits of beauty, and they'll come out eventually. And it's really interesting what you're sort of saying, because you hit that dark place, but from it you can push yourself in the right direction. And like I was saying, like the music is just, I basically wrote that album, from the start to finish in about 6 months. No way I would have done it before then.
No.
They were in there, but I couldn't. I would never have got them out like this.
No. You had felt that freedom.
Yeah.
We've obviously mentioned the music side a lot so far in this episode, and I don't think we've even spoke about what the band's name is, and some of the titles of the songs and some of the lyrics, and I almost referenced one of your songs earlier, but I thought I'd wait until this part of the podcast if we can really get into the music bit. And it was saying when you're doing the school run and you were in a shell, and it immediately made me think of the song "Dead Behind the Eyes," right? And I obviously know a lot about the lyrics and why the lyrics are what they are, because of being on, let's say, the journey with you through your mental health challenges. So why don't you tell us what the band are called and talk about some of your songs and how that helped you get to the point today where you're enjoying talking about arguably your darkest time.
Sure. Well, the band is Last of the Misfit Heroes. The Misfit part is how I felt probably much all my life. If I go back, I've never really fitted into anywhere. Or I've never felt I have. So that's where the misfit bit, the heroes bit, is coming out the other side and being happy with that decision of not fitting in anywhere. And the last of the bit was me basically saying to myself, I'm never going back to that dark place again. That's it. This is, I'm happy now where I am. And even like the title of the album, Hope for the Hopeless, it's I mean, that's the word that keeps popping up, is like hope. You do need hope, so...
It's everything.
But the whole songwriting process now is... It was strange. So even all this, like we were saying earlier, when the sort of dam went down and everything came out, I didn't realise all the bad stuff came out, but then I didn't realise there was good stuff in there as well. At the time, I couldn't even pick up a guitar. Like we were saying about, I was doing CBT, so they're telling you, do something you enjoy. And in my diary, I was looking through it, I tried to pick up a guitar once for 5 minutes and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't get any enjoyment. I lost no interest in it. I had no interest in it. But eventually, as I started going through the therapy and the treatment and everything else, I started actually going listening back to sort of albums from when I was younger, going back to like sort of Iron Maiden, the stuff I sort of grew up on, and even sort of rediscovering bands like Nirvana, and because like when they came out in the 90s, I was sort of more into heavy metal. I was Metallica, Slayer. That's my sort of thing. Yeah. So even though I knew all the Nirvana stuff, I never really got into it. But then you sort of go back over it, and it's amazing. And a lot of these albums as well, there's sort of stories of like one of the better albums is the Hybrid Theory, Linkin Park. But that's all his struggle with mental health is in an album, and he's putting it out there, and he's telling you. And I never sort of picked up on those sort of things, but now I listen to it and I can appreciate what the bad that they've been through and things like that. And then all of a sudden I started writing stuff, and it started coming easy. Not easy. It just sort of things started flowing, and it was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. But I totally changed the way I used to. I sort of wrote a song now. Whereas before I may force something, or you're right. You're not writing for the right sort of reasons. If you see what I mean, it's like writing a song. Is someone going to like it?
What rhymes with?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you overthink every little bit. Now I write a song. Do I like it? Yeah, I'm happy. So that's what I need to worry about. Everything else is out of my control. It's nothing.
Well, everything else is a big Brucey bonus, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. This is it. This is it. So, but I use, like saying, the lyrics. There's some lyrics in there. I mean, even the first song, "Creating a Monster," is probably the one that I think I'm most proud. That if you want to sum up everything I've been through, that song, "Creating a Monster," is like is exactly it. But there's a couple of lines. The first two lines. The first one is, "So what makes you special?" And it's someone. Well, I won't say who it was, but used to say, some people have said that to me in the past. What makes you special? And it sort of stuck with me. And I've used it as a negative against myself. Why am I special? And you overthink things and things like that. So it was good just to get all these different things people have said or things I said to myself and just put them all out. And just felt it was a release. But it was a positive release at the same time when all negative stuff was going. So I remember like the first rehearsal we had, because we're a three-piece. So there's myself on bass, there's Ange, my best mate. We went to school together when so I've known him since we were 5. So we played in bands all that time. And then our cousin Chris, he played drums. So we got him involved, and I remember that first rehearsal. I think it was April. So I sort of been signed off, and that was another weird thing as well, because it was all very strange, because I was being told by a therapist and everything, do what makes you happy, and it was strange because I felt guilty about going to a rehearsal when I'm ill, and I am ill. I wasn't. Yeah. And again, that really sort of threw me out. But it was good because I showed him a couple of ideas I had, and we just sort of had jam, and it went very quickly then. So within like a year, we'd recorded an EP, we've done a few gigs, and it just sort of took off. It's all coming from just being able to be creative and just produce something that we could be sort of proud of, I suppose.
It occurs to me that it sounds really nice, the fact that you've got your best mate on bass.
Yeah.
And you had your cousin on the drums. Yeah. That's a lovely thing.
Yeah.
I think.
It's a safe environment.
Yeah, it's lovely that.
Because I can imagine just being in bands with other people, it can become an unsafe environment, right?
Yeah, music's a funny thing, especially when you've got different creative ideas and things like that. sometimes it can be great and it can work really well, but other times it can clash. And
But it seems to me it invites another. Not invites, or that rather it introduces another variable. Whereas, like, if you're in a band with your best mate and your cousin, you're all going to more likely to have a similar taste in music and similar sort of, your direction you want to go in is more likely, I guess.
Yeah. Well, this works really well. I mean, I tend to I write all the material sort of thing. So Ange is probably he's an amazing bass player. So basically, I get the song, get the music ideas. I don't even tell him what to do. He just does it. And the same with Chris. To be fair, we never sort of sat down and said, right, you do this, you do that bit. You got the idea, and just let everyone else just do what they're good at doing. And when we came to record like the album, and I never really sort of said what guitar sort of sound. It's all very easy and basic. And I never sort of had a discussion with the engineer or the producer, just sort of how I wanted it to sound. I just let him do what, do what they're good at. Yeah. You do what you do, and just try and capture a sort of live sound. I think you can definitely overthink things, and you can put too much into it, and you can. Yeah, and you lose that whole essence of what you want. When you get that feeling, when when you've written something, that's good. I get feeling, and you just think, that works.
Yes, that's done. I'm not going to add any more to that.
Exactly. Yeah,
no more flourish. Doesn't need it. Yeah. I'm not going to gild the lily here.
Exactly, and I think in music you can definitely do it. You can definitely overdo stuff. That's why I quite like the idea of a 3-piece as well. You haven't got extra keyboards, you haven't got another guitarist. It's all very it's very quite raw, and and you can capture that feeling as well. So so really we've been quite lucky. Chris has left the band now, which is a shame. But I could sort of, we didn't have, there was no mass fallout or anything. It was all very. I think I can sort of see this was his first sort of band. I think he did enjoy it. I'm sure he enjoyed it, but we did a few gigs on a Sunday night, driving to Birmingham, playing to 6 people. Yeah. If you don't enjoy that half an hour, 40 minutes of playing on stage, then that does ruin your day, I suppose. It's a long way to go to. So we've done quite a few gigs. Some have been better than others, but we're happy to sort of travel around and do all that sort of thing. And I think for Chris, that's probably a bit too far. Just that next push. The best thing about it, I've been connecting with people, since starting the band, and then obviously going through lockdown doing radio interviews, because obviously no one could go out and play during lockdown. So we did really well getting our name out. There was loads of online radio stations and things like that. So I was doing interviews like in the States with radio stations and things like this. So we've made some really good connections, and it's really interesting. As soon as you sort of open up and about how the band started and where it's come from and all the negative stuff. But it was really good. I was chatting to a DJ out. She was in America, and I sort of said about my issues, and we went through a couple of songs. And then she started talking about her, what she'd been through. And, we're two strangers, totally no connection at all. We were having this conversation. It's very natural. She was telling me some really quite deep stuff, really. And but I think once you connect, and I think, music definitely does that. You get a sort of connection.
Well, it's like I said, I don't know which episode it was. I think it was probably the grief one, possibly, or it might have been our taster that we did. I remember saying that one of the best, probably the best thing I ever did was stopping giving a shit what people thought. I'm very upfront. I don't hold back. I'll tell people that if it's a pertinent to the situation, then I'll.
And that served us well during our time as coaches, because everyone had an opinion in that, didn't they?
That was this football. Right.
Oh God.
That's where this idea come from, didn't it?
Yeah.
From the side of a football pitch, and just seeing that conditioning of little boys being told they can't cry and stuff, and get up, pull yourself together, man up, grow up hair, all of that. You think, wow, it starts there. It starts there,
and this sort of toxic, masculinity that you see. If you can identify toxic masculinity as a man, that's bad. It's bad, and we've seen some awful stuff. From the side there.
Yeah, well, this is it. I think you sort of go. You can go right back to. I mean, through my own therapy and stuff like that. There's probably things that have happened. Even going to school and stuff like that. School didn't suit me. I didn't like being part of sort of a crowd. I didn't want to be a part of it, and I was never sort of naughty. So I was always sort of just sort of poodled along, just
Yeah,
doing
got on
bits
with
of it just didn't do it for me in any way at all. But I think you sort of then take that I've taken it into jobs and things like that, where I've just sort of done what I've had to do. I don't know. I think the whole thing with schools as well, you lose people as you go through. I think some people it's great and brilliant. They're going to, but you're told, aren't you, if you don't do well at school, if you don't get your grades, you're not going to get the good job. You're not, and that's sort of conditioned into you.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help either.
No.
It's not.
No, it's never too late to reinvent yourself.
No, totally. But you're sort of you're sort of telling...
that. Do you know what? And it still happens now. I mean, our eldest are although they're the same age, they're not at the same school. But you get this whole, you got to pass this because of this, and you got to do this, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, and it's
and that exactly what happened. One parents' evening, we sat down and they talked about his predicted grades, and they said, if you get these grades, you can do these A levels, and you'll end up at that university. And so it's just like, well, what's the other path other than university? Yeah. And there's, you're intelligent to get into enough to get into the best universities. And I said to the teachers, like, but there are other routes. You don't have to go down this route of education. I never went to university. I do okay. I've had to work hard. I feel quite strongly about the whole academic route, right?
I do.
You are successful as a child in your education if you get these results. Some poor student may be absolutely awful at maths, English, science, but you put them in a room with a blowtorch and some copper pipe in. They may see, right, okay, all right, there's a light switch there, we have to go around that, and they can just think in that way. I'm rubbish at that sort of stuff. I think it's great when you see a tradesman just look at something, work it out and visualise it. I can't do that. I'm not creative like that.
I haven't got that gene.
No.
The rest of my family has. I haven't got it.
Right.
I'm an anomaly.
But you are kind of ignored at school if you're not hitting those grades and putting that massive tick in the well done school box. Right? The well done school box is like, maybe you should focus on these down there and let them know that, okay, if you're not great at the classic subjects, these are other routes for you. And it was quite enlightening going to see a local college. I got really excited by this college because they had different parts of the college, like they had a working car garage, so kids can go and learn how to fix cars. They had a construction zone, so kids can go and learn and get the qualifications they need in order to move into that trade. Exactly.
Like that,
rather than it being like you'll end up being a bricklayer. I mean, bricklayers earn a lot of money.
My God.
But that at my school, it's just like, right, if you want a desk job, right, you got to get these grades. And it was all about getting that desk job.
Well, I was sort of pushed into that when I was at school, because my first ever job, which I was in for 7.5 years, was working in insurance.
Right.
It couldn't be any more different to what I do now. Even now, I don't know how. I mean, actually, I've still got some really good friends who are still in insurance. I think I'd have ended up in some kind of institution. I'd have gone mental. I don't know what possessed me. I actually think it was. I think it was my schooling.
What do you do now?
IT. yeah. But 20 years going strong. It was. I think I also did like a year business course, which I don't even know why I did that. But it just goes to going back to what you were saying, like it's all these like paths that you're sort of like these set like train lines that you're stuck on, and life's not like that.
No, definitely not. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because I mean, like now, if you look at me now, I'm doing what I'm doing accounts and I'm playing in a band and I'm happy. Go back 4 or 5 years, I was doing accounts, playing in a band, but I wasn't happy. So it's
when you're in the other band, what were the differences between your experiences in that to what you're doing now? Was it less? Did you feel like you had less scope to be creative? It was less of a creative environment for you personally.
Yeah. We were writing our own stuff, and I suppose I was doing about 90% of the the music sort of it. But it was all very it didn't have the. We were sort of doing it for the wrong reasons. Like it's more about we got quite excited when we get the sort of likes and more follows, and it was we weren't doing it to make loads of money, but it was to, I suppose, just to try and push it in that direction, I suppose.
Yeah.
But we recorded, we did a session up in a studio in Bermondsey, and the whole thing was just, it was soulless. We were stuck in this studio, and the guy who was producing it, he did so much work on it. It was us, but it just didn't have that natural sort of feel to it. It's funny because the guitar solo that I played on it was actually the guitar solo that I warmed up with. So on a first take, so I was just naturally playing it. All the other takes, it was just, it just didn't have that feeling, that vibe about it.
Yeah. And I'm guessing like the dynamic between you and your bandmates wasn't as good as what you.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's with my best mates really from school. It's like
really?
Yeah. Again, Ange, the bass player, he was in it, and Phil, the singer, we all went to school together. So it's like the school band from when we were 16. So that was quite nice. But I think everyone had their own different things going on. Where, I mean, the band we're doing now, it's not. We're not 100% committed. It's full time. It's nothing like that. It's all very. It's a hard way to explain it. This is more natural. It feels. It's sort of feeling. It feels good to do it. It feels.
Yeah.
So if we have a rehearsal or we do a gig, we did that Misfit Ball in November, which I think that whole Misfit Ball actually was interesting because we had to cancel it in April. We did it over the Easter weekend, and no one was buying tickets. I think we were out of lockdown then, weren't we? So I think it was like the first summer where people could start travelling properly, and so that whole weekend, it was a bit of a write-off, and we sold about, I don't know, 20, 30, 25 tickets, something like that. So then we postponed it back to November, pushed it back, and I was a bit concerned that we were putting it on again. Were we going to go through this whole thing again of trying to promote it? Because we'd already cancelled it once. We had to give refunds back on the tickets we had sold. And look, actually 2 weeks before the gig, the guy said, "Oh, you've only sold 20-something tickets." I was like, "Oh shit, it's repeating itself." But touch wood and everything, we ended up just over 90 people.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and we did it for a mental health charity, My Black Dog. So we made about 350 quid for them.
Fantastic.
And it all just came together. And it's funny, I don't believe in fate. I don't believe in signs and stuff like that. It doesn't. But the morning we did it, I was walking my dog, and this black Labrador came up to me. No, it's never happened before, right? And My Black Dog is a black lab that they use, and it's probably coincidence, but it just something then just sort of think, oh, okay, this is all going to work out. This is, and at that moment I forgot about all the sort of sleepless nights worrying, am I going to have to cancel it? Am I going to have to do this? And at that moment, I just thought, I'm just going to go with it today, and people turned up on the door. I mean, it was amazing. It was
a good night. It was a good vibe. Some good bands, but probably a good point to tell us a little bit more about My Black Dog. Have you heard of My Black Dog?
I'm aware of the term, but not the charity.
Yeah, they're an online mental health charity. And basically what it is, it's volunteers who've experienced mental health themselves. It's all online, so if you are struggling, you can just go to their website. I think they only do it in the evenings and at weekends, but you can basically just have an online chat with someone who's sort of experienced their own issues. And it's just, I think it's a good place to start. If you don't feel you can talk to someone, they're a good place to start. It's all anonymous sort of thing, so you can just chat away and say what you need to get out. If you
peer to peer,
peer to peer, yeah. So I spoke to the founder, Nikki Clark, and she was great. Had a good half-hour chat with her, and she was telling me, she had her own experiences and everything else, and she's built out from there. But she was sort of saying, she was giving me some figures on, sort of waiting times for people to get mental health treatment. And it's like I'm sure she said about 1.6 million people waiting just for like basic treatment, some sort of treatment. And that's
bonkers.
That's just the people who've sort of reached out for help. It does sort of make you. Yeah, it's a scary sort of situation. Yeah,
I know the last time I went to doctors because I went to a bit of a dark place after my dad passed away. Actually, to be fair to them, they were really good. But I think there was that chance of counselling, but I knew from experience that that's a waste of time to even entertain from them, because I'd be waiting for like a good 6 months for it, and
it was a waste of time because of the wait, not a waste of time.
Oh no, the
counselling,
actual counselling would be well worth
Yeah,
it. It's just that the thing is, by the time I'd actually have the counselling, stuff would have probably happened.
Yeah.
You quite often need it now, don't you? And you know, I was fortunate, as I mentioned earlier. I knew a guy, so it was easy just to pick up the phone. Like, can we meet?
Yeah.
And you mentioned right at the beginning of this podcast, Steve, that you used a work helpline now.
Yeah.
It's 2023 now, so not this year, but in 2022, a lot of personal changes for me. And I remember one Monday, and again, a heavy weekend, maybe one or two many to drink, and Monday, Tuesday, feeling pretty ropey. So I've done it again. And I'm feeling like I am, and I just need to talk to someone now. Again, I'm thinking if I go to the doctor's, going to have to wait 2 weeks for an appointment, so I need to speak to someone now. So I used the work helpline, and I think it's only within about half an hour I was talking to a counsellor.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's really good, and you know she did what counsellors do. It's just made me say what was in my head.
Yeah.
Bring it out, and you know, it gave me a call in a couple of days to follow up to see how I was feeling, and it was great. And I think many companies have that service available.
Yeah.
It's about knowing about it, isn't it?
Yeah,
you got to know that it's there, because it's generally just one of those benefits that are on a list of benefits that you kind of glaze over if you're looking at your list of benefits. But it really is valuable. Really is valuable. But the funny thing is, it just reminded me of a conversation I had with a friend of mine today who's doing dry January, right? And I was chatting to him earlier, and he goes, Nick, I don't really understand it. He goes, I've not been drinking, and I've always put the way I feel on a Monday down to having a few beers over the weekend. He's like, I'm not drinking, and I still feel like it on a Monday. And we started talking about, like, okay, so what is it? Is it the alcohol consumption that makes you feel rubbish, or is it the Monday? And we were just talking about that, how it's the very beginning of a brand new week, and you know, you enjoy your weekends and you feel so far away from the weekend. But it just reminded me of that, because of the whole do I feel like I do because I haven't looked after myself, or do I genuinely have a mental health challenge coming my way? Like you have to work out sometimes.
Well, it's doing him good, because not only because he's not drinking, but because now he's having to sort of think, well, I feel crap. Therefore, it's not to do with the booze. Therefore, I'm now going to have to confront the things that are making me feel rubbish. And I'm going to have to try and work out what that is, which actually is whilst could be scary, is a good thing, because once you start doing that, and then you start a little bit of acceptance of those things.
If he's aware of it and he's come to you and sort of said, I don't feel right. That's a good start. That's a perfect start, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And he exercises a lot as well. He's running every day at the moment. And Steve, I know that you run, and that's I know you've used that as part of your path of recovery. I ran loads in 2020 to the point where I hurt myself. Right? You know, they couldn't find any particular one thing that caused my stroke, but the ultimately I was dehydrated, and my blood clotted in my brain as a result of that. And we went through the kind of exercise I was doing, and I was running 10k a day, because that was the period of time where I didn't stop thinking by any means, but I was thinking of something different. I was looking at my watch going, right, okay, that's slightly slower than yesterday. I've got to pick up the pace, and I'll just give myself a different sort of mental bashing, and to a point where I overworked myself, and you know, I wasn't hydrated enough, and
No, it's funny you say that, because we did that. Do you remember we did a 10k, didn't we? I didn't do it together, but we did a summer one, didn't we? That was 2017, I think, or 18. It was a London one. I think it was about 2017, because that's when I first started running. There was a couple of mates, and we sort of said, just as an exercise thing, just to do it. But I'd been training for this 10k about 3 months, and again, I was overdoing it. I did something to my knee, but on the day, it was so hot, and I ended up walking a lot of it, and I did it. I don't know, about an hour, 10 minutes, something like that, and I was gutted, because I did 10 I did 10k weekend before, and it was under an hour, and I hadn't stopped or anything like this. But this time I had to walk. I remember finishing it, and I was so pissed off, so angry with myself. It's like, but Andrew's with me. He came up, and I was saying to him, I'm pissed off. I had to walk. He said, but like 3 months ago, you couldn't run 5 minutes. But in my head, I was so angry. I was like, why have I done that? And actually,
Can't see the wood for the trees.
Exactly. Yeah, you're so focused on that. Doing it under an hour. I'm not walking. I'm gonna. And you push yourself, and there's no need really. I mean, it's funny because I've done quite a few 10Ks, and I did this one with this guy, and he was running. I'd done all the training and everything else, and I was running constantly. This guy, he went shooting off, and then he'd walk, so I'd catch him up, and then he'd go shooting past me, and this was going all the way around, and I was getting so pissed off with him because. But the thing is, we both got to the end about the same time. And he actually ended up going faster than me. But that made me realise I spent all that time thinking, I've done all this training, I've done all this and this. But at the end of it, we've both done 10k. We've both finished it. Who cares? The fact that we've actually just done a 10k, that's that again, it's sort of the success.
It's that whole thing of accepting like the actual, the achievement of it as opposed to...
Totally.
That was like the boxing match I did, right? So Steve come to watch the boxing match. So 8 weeks of the most intense kind of physical training I've ever done. Sparring 4 times a week and just generally feeling like you've been beaten up all the time that you're doing it. And I remember having my walkout music. I'm going to get in that ring.
You did walkout music as well?
Oh yeah, you get your own walkout music.
What was your walkout music?
Limb by Limb.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
Is that
drum and bass or something?
It's a drum and bass tune. And I'll play it to you later. But get in the ring. Like you got how many people did there? Maybe
there was
15 to 20 people there. I was just like, right, okay. And I remember it started. At first, it was going my way, and then it immediately didn't go my way.
Because I was there watching. You caught him with a really nice hit. Yeah, and all of a sudden he clicked. Something went off in his. He
just started windmilling. I was just taking
all
it back.
over you.
And I remember the point where my ass hit the canvas, and my immediate thought was like, "Well, that was 8 weeks wasted."
It's exactly what.
It's the same,
When the ref's doing, he's waving his hand in front of me, it's that's it, game over. Yeah. But as soon as I was stood up again, I immediately went into no, fuck it, I did it.
Yeah,
I got in
you're
the
probably
ring.
the fittest you've ever been.
Yeah, and that's what the coach said as I got back in the dressing room. He's just like, you've lost weight, you're fitter than ever. Yeah, you've done an amazing job, and it's just like, that's how I feel.
And who else has the guts to do that? I bloody wouldn't.
Oh, definitely,
I wouldn't do it again.
No, because that kind of training's hard.
Yeah,
it's proper cardio. Like really hard.
Yeah,
full on. Yeah,
it's horrible.
Yeah.
God, were you nervous before you went in the ring then?
Oh yeah. I mean, every boxer, because there were loads of fights, weren't there?
Yeah,
maybe about 20, 30 fights. Yeah, and they're all quite short. But yeah, because you get there early, right, and all day people were just pacing. And you get the
taping up.
Yeah, the tapes around your knuckles done really early, and everyone's just walking around pacing all day. No one looking like they're really enjoying it.
Can you just that? Sorry to go off subject slightly, but when you have your hands taped up, can you what's the mobility? Can you go to the toilet or anything?
Yeah, you still got your fingers.
Yeah, but can you bend them enough? So say for instance, if you had to go for a number 2, could you wipe your ass?
Yeah.
How would you wash your hands then?
Well, you couldn't really.
Oh.
You just have to be careful with the wiping, wouldn't you?
Well, use bog roll.
I mean, if you're at the point where your hands are taped up for something, that's not important, right?
No, but
have you ever put your hand inside a sweaty boxing glove? Now we all shared boxing gloves that night. Right.
I bet they stunk.
I was probably fight about 11 or something by the time they went on. They were wet. But during training, the thing that would smell the most in my kit bag was my wraps. That I wrapped my hands with before training.
Yeah, I bet.
Just stank. Disgusting.
Can you imagine the bacteria in those gloves? Yeah. You'd have to chuck them or burn them afterwards, wouldn't you? Yeah. I bet they didn't know. I bet they got used the next week or.
Oh yeah. I mean, they wash them often. It's boxing.
That is rank in it. So this is how I know I wouldn't be a very good boxer. I'm too much
No.
The closest I ever come to boxing, I used to do this competition karate.
I don't know why I found that funny.
I never competed or anything
Yeah.
because I wasn't fit enough and I didn't do it for long enough.
Hold
But
on.
I had all,
You done competition karate but didn't compete?
yeah, because there's a name for it, and I can't remember the name for it now. But you have all these like special like pads. You have like special like pads over your knuckles and everything. And I can't remember where else the pads. I think you had pads on your elbows as well. I can't really remember.
Oh, okay.
I had all the get up,
Yeah.
but my overriding memory of doing that was I remember I turned up to used to like train once a week in the Corn Exchange in Hertford. Weirdly, before it was like a concert venue type thing. Used to go there with a couple of mates, and I remember I hadn't had my dinner. Actually, there was two memories. I nearly fainted one night because I hadn't had my dinner, and like I was just honestly, it was so cardio, it was unbelievable.
Right.
I was not even close to being fit enough.
Yeah.
And there was another one where it is like full contact training, but because you got like these great big like pads on your arms, you could punch someone and it's not really going to hurt them. I was sparring with this girl, and she couldn't have been anything over 14. And I was in my 20s. And I wasn't. Yeah, I was. No, I think I was about 20. And she literally took me down. I literally properly got beaten up by this 14-year-old girl. That was a low point. I don't think it was long after that I gave it up.
And I know the evil feeling that you feel when you sing it. And the first thing they'll say is the beat, the beat, the beat.
I'm starting to notice that, like, through doing these podcasts, like this is episode 3, that there's this sort of underlying sort of like theme of acceptance, because I think that's been a huge thing without us actually even mentioning it really too much today. That's been a huge thing for you. I think, like, just accepting, just enjoying the music and enjoying and being able to sort of accept where you are now and accept that this has happened. Yeah. And actually, if it hadn't have happened, then maybe you wouldn't be in this band now and loving it. And
exactly.
And the success, I guess, is the enjoyment you're getting and the fact that, like you said earlier, I remember you saying that you're not the same person that you were 4 years ago when this all when this all happened. The most brilliant thing about that, which I absolutely love, is the fact that you can see that difference.
Yeah.
And regardless of what anyone else thinks, I think you've been through the mill, like properly through the mill, but actually you've come out the other side.
Yeah.
Almost, for want of a better way of putting it, it's almost like you've come out of it filtered. Like you've come out of it cleansed. You've been able to confront the stuff that was probably nagging at you without you knowing it before.
Yeah.
5 years, let's say 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And you've been able to, through proper work on your behalf and due diligence with yourself.
Yeah. And being able to talk openly about it is accepting that that's a journey that you had to take.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I mean, but I suppose at the time I didn't have a choice. You know, there was no alternative. I had to sort of face up to it and deal with it. There was no choice. I couldn't hardly leave the house. So I think that thought scares, like I said earlier, that thought scares me a lot more than doing this or being open with someone now. I know that I'd rather be open and about everything rather than in that horrible place where you don't know what's coming next, or you're telling yourself all sorts. And it's a strange one. I mean, it's because like I say, I am totally different. I've never spoken to anyone like this at all. But now it's like second nature because I've had no choice but to like I say, sort of face up to it and deal with it.
Yeah, it's massive. A lot of people go through their whole lives and never make the progress you've made in that 4 years.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate because I think obviously there's clinical depression as well and things like that, and I've never been tested. I could have been tested for whether it's a clinical thing as well, but I don't think it is. I think it's a lot of it is sort of the situation experiences I've been through and not dealing with those experiences. But carrying it with me rather than and just doing it, just getting it out. I've just kept it all locked in for so long that I've made myself toxic.
Well, you're fit to burst.
Yeah, oh, totally. Yeah, yeah.
And there is always that analogy of the dripping bucket, isn't there?
Yeah.
Where it drips when something else happens, like stressful, it will drip more and more and more until you get to the top and it just spills over.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is essentially what happened.
Well, it's funny you say that because the way I sort of look at my mind now, it's like a sponge. So once it's full up with the water and stuff like that, you need to get squeeze it and get as much water out, but keep the good water in there and get rid of the nasty stuff. I've got a lot more awareness. I suppose that's the word really is I'm aware of how I'm reacting with people and how people react with me. Rather than I was very closed off, I suppose, before. If I was having a bad day, I wouldn't share it. If someone else was having a bad day, I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be able to pick up on it. Now I can sort of I can pick up with some. You just sort of become more aware of your surroundings and what's going on around you, rather than sort of shutting myself off in my own little, sort of messed up world. And well, it needs to happen. But
you're able to see the positive.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. But one thing I would say, just any time is, even if you can't talk to anyone or you're struggling, you're just in that zone. Everyone's got a mobile phone and they've all got voice recorders on. Just go for a walk 5 minutes and just talk whatever you want. If it's shit, if it makes no sense, I've got hours on my phone of me just when it first happened. Well, it was a couple of months into it. I was just talking over scenarios that were going around in my head and just getting them out, just saying those words, just releasing it. It does make. It may not seem like a big thing, but it does. I still do it now. If I have had a bad day or something, I might just talk to myself on the way home for 10 minutes. But I've just got it out. A lot of it's rubbish. A lot of it doesn't even. Why am I even worried about things?
You're expressing, aren't you?
Yeah,
you're getting it out.
Yeah, exactly.
You're using that pressure cooker, aren't you?
That's it. Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah,
it's such a brilliant thing to be able to do.
Thanks a lot for coming in today, Steve, and sharing your journey with us. It's been enlightening. I've learned a lot, even though we were close through your journey. For me, today's been very much what this podcast is about. Just three guys around a table talking about experiences like they should be discussed. So really appreciate you coming in and good luck with the band stuff. Keep doing what you're doing and just stay on that path.
Yeah.
Keeping on.
Yeah, we'll do. No, thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Lovely to meet you, mate.
Yeah, you too, mate.
Hi, thanks for listening. It was a real pleasure having Steve on the show. His story is so inspirational and positive and proves that despite his experience being completely out of the blue, he was able to come out the other side with a different view on life and a really positive outlook for the future. You can find them on Apple Music and Spotify and find more info about gigs on Facebook and their other socials. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Go2Him podcast and spread the word about us. The more of us we can get talking, the better.